What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk to you about Lucid. I want to go over some of the data points, break it down on what is really moving it. And with their Q3 earnings just coming out after hours yesterday, I want to go over the good, the bad, and the ugly. Before we get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid is up 2.87%, doing very well, especially considering the market is selling off. But 17.14 the low, 18.10 the high, and then 9.7 million shares being traded. Market's going to close in roughly 20 minutes on a side note. And the main reason why the market's selling off is because of challenger job cuts. Came in at 153, forecast of 73. So the market always wants negative labor data to justify rate cuts. Not this bad. Although it shouldn't be that big of a surprise. We've seen Amazon and many other big names even posting it, saying that they intend on cutting. And so this shouldn't have been that crazy of a surprise, but I think the market right now is just finding any excuse just to kind of sell off. But in Lucid's case, things were surprisingly positive today. And so I feel like there's a couple different things that's causing it to kind of stay afloat. Starting off, their earnings. And so they did miss on their top and bottom line. So as I've mentioned, I think Wall Street largely overlooks a lot of the key metrics and focuses more on Lucid's future guidance. That's what the big deal is. And just on a side note, this earnings per share miss primarily significantly higher, I guess, G&A. So that's one thing that really caused that. I brought it up on my live stream. But when it comes down to Lucid, some of the positives that came from their earnings, there was this right here. So they did announce some organizational changes. During the earnings, they spoke very positively of many of them, even 𝗖𝗓𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧. And I see a lot of people on social media really praising him as well. So I think in general, there's a lot of things happening. And I think they did a lot of these changes to kind of streamline a lot of the supply chain, which actually is a good transition to bring up another very good positive. And that is Mark being a little bit more transparent. I think overall, as the earnings kind of went through, he warmed up a little bit more. Initially, he was reading off a script. It sounded very robotic. It was kind of crappy, but he did have points here and there where he spoke just naturally. And one of which was when he talked about several supply chain issues that they've dealt with over so far in this year. We, as far as investors, have only been made aware of one, and that was magnets. That was a very hot topic last quarter. And this time they mentioned that they have dealt with aluminum, chips, and also magnets. And even technically the magnets, there was more to it that did happen in Q2 that they didn't tell us about. So supposedly, I guess the magnets that did come in, they were not good for the Gravity Grand Touring. They were only good for the Air and the Gravity Touring. This is why they did launch the Touring early in Saudi Arabia, just because of the whole transition time and transport time to Saudi Arabia. They weren't really able to deliver any of that. So that is going to be something positive, I guess, for Q4. But I really did like Mark's transparency, and he did actually answer a lot of the questions posed by retail and just analysts very well. So I think that was kind of a good thing. That's something that whenever kind of the earnings weren't that great, Peter would always just stutter. And I always refer back to Peter only because I've been covering this stock for a while, and he's been primarily the CEO, at least in my mind. So I think in general, combination of this kind of executive changes as well as just the level of transparency was very positive. One thing as well that the market really did like was the fact that they did double down on their 18,000 2025 target. So a lot of pressure for Q4, mind you, but still by them saying that, hey, we can achieve it, market likes that. I see some bearish articles coming out saying that Lucid lowered guidance again. I don't think that's accurate. Just on a side note, it went from 20,000 in Q2. They lowered it to 18 to 20. This time around, they said that it'll be kind of on the low end of 18. So I don't really see that kind of changing, a new kind of target. So I think it's still within the parameters of the old one. They just guided closer to 18. So I don't really consider that a kind of big change to me, but still, nonetheless, in order for them to hit that, I think it's roughly around 5,000. That's what they have to do for this earnings. That's also another very good positive, is that they've been really ramping up despite a lot of, as what they have mentioned, headwinds, demand kind of dropping as what a lot of other EVs have been encountering, Lucid said that they're not really doing, that's not really affecting them. 𝗪𝗧𝗡, they did bring up ever since that big campaign that he did in September, they saw demand for the Gravity going up roughly 8% month over month consistently. So even though I was somewhat hesitant initially about 𝗪𝗧𝗡, and still kind of am, still haven't watched any of his movies unfortunately, but he clearly is doing a good job. So that's kind of a positive. They did also allude to those two basketball players, that's kind of ambassador type of thing. And then they mentioned other big things are going to be coming. So they didn't allude to what that meant. Hopefully it's World Cup related, fingers crossed. But nonetheless, though, those were some of the positives. And then as well, while the earnings was going through, I actually had the ticker up. So you can always kind of look back to my live stream, and every single time that Lucid mentioned or an analyst mentioned NVIDIA, the stock went up. So I feel like the market is, there was one analyst very doubtful that Lucid could actually have any meaningful progress with NVIDIA, but that clearly is being seen as a very positive thing by the market. So you have a combination of all of that. They didn't push back Uber. There actually sounds like that, they didn't say it, but it sounds like they are kind of ahead of schedule. They've already sent the tentative gravities and the early gravities for, I guess, configuration with Neuro. So things are happening behind the scenes. So all the targets, so mid-size, you have NVIDIA as well as Uber, all on track. So those were some of the positives. And I feel like them doubling down on the 18,000 NVIDIA, those were some of the primary ones that is keeping Lucid afloat today. Because you actually, surprisingly enough, you have a lot of not really that bullish of ratings. So some of the ones that did come out today: 21 by 𝗖𝗓𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧, Stefan, 48% success rating; 21 Cantor Fitzgerald, 51% success rating; 17 Hold, that was by Ben, who has a 44% success rating; $10 sell. Bank of America has been very bearish on Lucid lately. On a side note, you also did have a Needham just hold, and then $19 hold as well. So given where Lucid is at, all of these are considered bullish, except for, of course, that $10 sell. So let me know your viewpoint on that. So those were some of the positives, and as well as analyst ratings that kind of Lucid is dealing with. Some of the negatives. So this is where I feel like in previous earnings, I had a huge list of negatives. In reality, this earnings was more neutral. Like there wasn't really anything crazy that I needed to stop what I was doing and buy Lucid, and nor was there any real reason that you needed to sell. So there wasn't really all that much in true negatives. One thing as well was 𝗪𝗓𝗡𝗡𝗘𝗧. I feel like that is a little bit of a negative, only because pretty much all the OGs in Lucid that pretty much built Lucid are gone. Which is unfortunate. I, on the other hand, was never really that big of a fan of 𝗪𝗓𝗡𝗡𝗧, to be fully honest. So I'm not losing any sleep over it. And plus, I've kind of complained in 2024, he and also Peter did receive more than $1 million. So I think it's 1.1 million each for a bonus for the Gravity. So I feel like just a lot of people were very just overpaid in reality. One thing as well that some people seem to be very optimistic about, so I'll put this under the bullish side, and that's the DDTL, so the line of credit. And so a lot of people are saying that Lucid did that to alleviate any dilution. So they raised it from 250 to 2 billion. So good stuff. I still do believe that they'll need money probably in the next month, most likely. And you can just do some basic math, just kind of calculating that. But they'll probably lean on this a little bit more. Some things to keep in mind for this DDTL is that there is, I believe it is a 0.75% upfront fee that they have to pay the PIF. So there's that component. And again, a lot of people are saying that they did this to alleviate any dilution. Even though for face value that is correct, it's not exactly 100% correct, if that makes sense. So technically, this is no different than anyone else taking money out on a line of credit. Technically, yeah, there is no dilution, no nothing. Lucid just has to make the payments, but $2 billion, if they max that out, then technically Lucid won't be able to kind of come up with that money. They'll probably have to dilute to pay that off, if that kind of makes sense. So yes, initially no dilution, possibly down the line, but a lot of people seem to be very, very optimistic about this. So that was kind of a positive negative type of scenario. Another negative that I did not really like was this right here. And even though I think in reality nobody really gives two craps about it because of the level and of the questions, but you can kind of see right here some of the questions that was really answered, and which again, Mark, as I mentioned, did answer these fairly well, but I didn't like that they selected or did not select these two. And my main issue is I don't understand the whole purpose of the voting structure then. Like in the past, sometimes Lucid's not answered a question only because they've already brought it up previously in that same earnings call. But this one, they completely overlooked these two. So what are the chances of Lucid going bankrupt, and how do you justify your executive compensation package when the company loses money every year? Isn't compensation based on success? Two very good questions, and I would have loved to hear the answers that Mark had, and they could have actually used that as a good pivot and somehow said, hey, you know what, yes, we are overpaid right now. Obviously they wouldn't use that wording, but yes, we're paid a competitive salary, but we bring blah blah blah. I don't know, they had time to, they knew all this in advance. This was not just popped up. So I think in general, the fact that they skipped over those two is, it kind of just defeats the purpose of this, and it makes you not even want to pose any questions. It's just really stupid. So I really see this as a negative, but as I mentioned, I feel like there wasn't really all that much in true negatives this earnings. So I guess overall you can kind of consider it somewhat as a positive, and maybe that is why Lucid is holding up better than a lot of stocks going on right now. Aside from all of that though, just to give you a very quick summary, because I know I've kind of spoke quite a little bit longer than I normally do. So Lucid right now, shorts that are increasing 317,000 shares, 32.4% of the free float's being shorted, works to be 41.2 million shares. That, on a side note, would have been something that I would have loved to have heard from Mark, just saying, hey, you know what, we are very self-aware that we're heavily shorted, but things are going to change. I don't know, something like that. Just send a threat. A lot of CEOs do that, and like that seems to hype people up. So I feel like that would have been a little bit icing on the cake. That would have been very advantageous. But nonetheless though, analysts seem to be very hesitant about Lucid. I think it's recovering fairly well today. So let me know your viewpoint on that. I know I did kind of give very vague bullish and bearish points, but was there anything that you felt that I missed that is either bullish or bearish? So let me know your thoughts on Lucid. Are you buying more? Are you selling? What is your kind of general thoughts on Lucid? And then one final thing, I've always had a Patreon, which I've been open and kind of explaining to you, where I put out buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. I recently did launch a new stacked account, and for a promo, so since I launched this, I'm only going to be having this for $1 for another 12 hours. So until midnight, I guess Thursday, that is where it will go back to the regular fee. And so if anyone wants to get in for $1 a month, you can get buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, daily day trades, numerous swing trades. So I really recommend a lot of people to sign up for this. So yeah, I'm going to be stopping that at midnight, so definitely sign up while you can. But let me know your thoughts on Lucid. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.